getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. I'm getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. Well, I'm lumped up, but I'm okay. It's gonna get lumped up anyway. You better call back the posse. Just getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. Getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi.
Hey everybody, welcome to the RockerMike and Rob Presents show. I am RockerMike, and we have the great Rob Rossi, top left. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing pretty good today.
Okay, special guest today is Madeline Bocaro. Madeline wrote a great book about Yoko Ono, the famous Yoko Ono, called In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. It's available now. She also is a longtime rock and roll chick in New York City. She has a great blog called MadelineX.com. We're going to talk about that. Before we get into it, though, we got to pay some bills. So let's talk about the famous Mineola Diner, okay, on Jericho Turnpike and Willis Avenue in Mineola. It's been there for 75 years. They have great food. Shane, the manager, is fantastic. And make sure you get there early. They close early. You like fluffy omelets, Madeline?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever been to the Mineola Diner?
I've been there, yeah.
Okay, it looks like a little train on the corner there of Willis and they make the fluffiest fluffiest omelets I've ever had in a diner. It's amazing, you know. So shout out to them. And if you go into the Mineola Diner and mention RockerMike, you get a free cup of coffee. And you also get a free soda if coffee's not your thing. So whatever you like, just mention RockerMike at the Mineola Diner. We also got to plug one of my favorite watering holes, Arp's Tavern in Floral Park, also in Nassau County, right next to the train station.
Yep.
Check out all the guys there. Doc is the bar manager, tall Irish guy. He's got a nice heavy paw like you, Rob.
Oh, yeah.
And, they're open from 8 in the morning to 4 in the morning. So anytime you want to drink, come down to Arps. They've been there over 100 years, serving all the alcoholics of Nassau County. Okay, so Madeline, you wrote a book called In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. Got to ask a question.
Yeah.
What did you find so interesting that you wanted to write a book about Yoko? She's a fascinating person, no doubt, but she's kind of a controversial person in the Beatles world. So how'd you get to that point?
Well, that's why I wanted to write it, because she was so controversial and for no reason. It was all based upon lies that were written about her.
Right.
But I discovered her right before, it was probably she had just met John, and there was an article about her in Time magazine, but it was about her film Bottoms, where she had these people walking naked on a treadmill, and there was a close-up of
this was like an art film type thing she did in the 60s, right?
Right. And I was 10 years old when I saw this article, and I was just resonated with it. I'm like, this is so cool. And there's a picture of her, and she just looked kind of mischievous, and really, I thought she was pretty, and I just saved the article. And then the following month, the Beatles' White Album came out.
Right.
And I was into the Beatles as a little kid, and I made my dad take me to get the store to get it. And then I start hearing that she's singing on it on the continuing story of Bungalow Bill. And I'm like, oh my God, she's with John Lennon. Now I can find out what she's doing. So I just started following everything they ever did all my life, collecting every magazine and article and recording them off the radio. And it was just a lifelong thing. I just loved her. And then I started hearing about the hatred toward her and them blaming her for breaking the Beatles up. And it was just, it didn't make sense to me. I mean, they fell in love. You know, he had a wife and child in the past who they grew apart, right? But back then I'm realizing in the 60s, you know, divorce was like a big sin. And, you know,
it was.
The young Beatles fans grew up knowing John with the blonde wife and the young child, and they couldn't handle a new person coming in. So a lot of it was that, but a lot of the newspapers really just wrote lies about her in order to sell papers.
Yeah, I never bought into the whole like Yoko broke up the Beatles thing. They would have broke up anyway, really, pretty much. Whether they had enough problems amongst themselves that probably, other women involved really didn't matter that much at that point. It was the process, the writing process wasn't working anymore or whatever. Just they were going in different directions. Bands, this is what happens in bands,
Yeah.
So yeah, she always kind of had kind of the kind of the bad end of the stick really with this. It really wasn't her fault. But you've become friends with her through the process of writing this book, right?
Well, before that, I mean,
before that,
I used to write to her when they moved into the Dakota. I'm like,
really?
oh my God, that I have an address now. Let me write to her. And I would write and talk about her music and her artwork and how much I loved it. And she would write back because she was fascinated that a kid would, really, back then nobody was really appreciating her work. And then, that trickled off after a while. But then in the 80s, after John was killed, a friend of mine who used to go to the Dakota and see John and Yoko come out and get their autographs with all the other fans that used to do that, she said, I think Yoko really needs to meet you. I mean, you love her so much. You should really. I was like, I don't want to go there. It's just like standing on their doorstep. And she said, no. Just come with me one day and, you'll see. You'll meet her. So I said, okay, I'll go with you, but it's going to be on her birthday. So she knows I'm there for her. And, if there's a lot of people around, I'm not sticking around. So we went, and it was this beautiful winter day. And she came out within 5 minutes. And I gave her a birthday present, and I told her who I was, and she let out this little scream, and she's like, oh my God, it's you. And she said, I'm having an exhibition of John's artwork next week. You should come to this. And she started sending me invitations to all of her, her exhibitions, and then later concerts. And I would go backstage and see her and talk to her. So that was, in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And then, I don't know. And during COVID, my boyfriend said, why don't you take everything you've been writing? Because I had written for magazines or just notes every night I got home after the concert or wrote down everything. He said, why don't you put together everything you have with this software that allowed me to organize it all? And I said, oh my God, I have 500 pages here. And then it took me the 2 years of COVID to sit and really flesh it out and organize it. And it just came to be.
Yeah, putting a book together is very difficult. We've interviewed a lot of authors, and they all say that. Did you have any? Were you self-published with this book?
I had to self-publish because it's 550 pages, and every publisher, first of all, they weren't even going to do it at all. This is a very esoteric subject, and any book can't be. It has to be 200 pages. And like, this woman is 91 years old. She had such a long, incredible, creative life. There's so many topics. In fact, this month, October and August and October, 2 films are coming out about the same week in their lives. Wow. 2-hour documentaries. One is about the week they co-hosted the Mike Douglas show.
Yes,
with all the radical guests they had on there. Mm-hmm. And another one is about the one-to-one concert in 1972, which I attended when I was 14. Wow. And it was the last time John ever performed ever, except for the appearance with Elton John for a few songs. Yeah. So, and then there's documentaries about just the deportation hearings, John Lennon versus the U.S.
Right.
There's ones just about the making of the Imagine album. There's ones just about their relationship. It goes on. So
what do you think it is that, 50 years later, people, 50 years, you're talking the 70s, even it's been over 40 since he passed away. Well, what do you think it is that, keeps people so interested in this topic?
I think firstly, it's the Beatles. The Beatles are the biggest thing ever. And there are so many young people into the Beatles. There are university courses now in England about Beatles music. There are academics who specialize in the Beatles. There are thousands of Beatles books,
right?
And then it's just, John was killed, and that was a huge thing. John was a gigantic figure, no matter what. He was the music, it was the politics, it was the outspokenness, it was the honesty, it was the controversy. I mean, there was so much about him. And people loved him, and they also, some hate him or hate him for what he became, when he left the Beatles. So it's just all that rolled up in one. There's the relationship between John and Paul that people focus on. There's the relationship between, Yoko and John. It's a whole story in itself. It was a very deep love story, and people deny that.
Yeah, I mean, there's even been documentaries about that lost weekend and all that stuff. It's like little pieces of their lives are so fascinating. You could make a whole movie out of it.
Right.
Really. I find it fascinating. Knowing Yoko so well, what would you say is the most, a couple of questions. What would you say is the most misunderstood thing about her, pretty much?
That she destroyed John, or she, kept him isolated from everybody, and that she was a black widow and all this kind of stuff. She nurtured John. They nurtured each other. They both came from a background of parental abandonment. They both were war children. She more than him. I mean, they were older than him, but she was young. She had to be evacuated when she was 12 years old with her younger siblings to the countryside, to a dilapidated farmhouse where there was no food. She had to trade jewelry and kimonos for rice. She was from one of the wealthiest families in Japan of all time in the 1930s, 40s, 50s.
What was her background? Her parents, what did they do for a living?
So her mother was just a descendant of the Yasuda billionaire banking family.
Banking.
Banking. And her father, when he married into her family, was forced to go into banking as well. He was going to be a concert pianist.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And
that's the autistic connection, the father.
Right. And the whole family was trained in the arts, even people that married into her family. Her two Russian aunts were very prominent painters and a violinist.
Right.
Everyone in her family, one of her uncles was the first ambassador to the United Nations. I mean, this is big time people. This isn't just, it has a fascinating ancestry. And the great grandfather who founded the Yasuda Bank, John came to Japan for a family reunion they were having, and he saw a picture of this guy, and he said to Yoko, this guy looks like me in a past life, because he had these almond-shaped eyes, whatever. He just related to this picture. And Yoko said, don't say that. He was assassinated. Oh. And it's true. He was assassinated by a socialist.
Oh, wow. That's a strange coincidence right there. Wow.
Let me tell you, was there any truth to the rumor that the family actually cut her off after she married Lennon?
The family cut her off even after she married her first husband, who was Japanese, because he wasn't of a high enough class.
Right. I was going to ask you about her first husband. I know she was married before John.
Yeah. His name was Toshi Ichiyanagi. He was he was a student of John Cage, and that's how she got into that whole clique of the avant-garde musicians. And he became one of the most renowned avant-garde composers in Japan. He was working up until 2 years ago when he passed away. Very renowned performer. But they didn't approve of him. She was in America when she married him. And they didn't come to the wedding, nothing. Wow. Her second husband was American. I don't even know if he met her parents. I mean, they just worked in London, New York, and Japan a bit. And then when she married John, they were mortified. He came to in 1970, he goes to visit, her parents, and he's wearing the overalls and the beard, the 1970, Ono band look. And they were not impressed. Not at all. They'd never heard of Beatles over there. They were just mortified.
Yeah, the Beatles never made it to Japan. So
well, they did.
Did they?
But not when when Yoko was growing up in the 1940s. It was not even rock and roll. People think, oh, Yoko's in her bedroom with a record player and posters of the Beatles on her walls. No.
She was 10 years older than him anyway.
8 years older.
Yeah.
Wow. You remember the documentary Get Back?
Uh-huh.
I would just remember her being there, like sitting next to him as the rest of the band was like, and like everybody else was away, but she was like sitting right there, like if I was on the band, I was like, dude, what are you doing? Well, why are you over here? Which that really was like, why is she here? Why don't we're gonna play music, walk away?
Well, that was part of she was John's tool to piss them off, because he wanted out. But he also loved her so much
Yeah.
that he wanted her around 24/7.
Okay.
And he would take her into the bathroom with him. I mean, he just wanted her to be side by side. And
Yeah.
she's different. She's an independent artist, and you can see she's drawing, she's writing,
Yeah.
she's planning her next work. And then when he told her he was going to leave the band, he goes, "Yeah, it's going to just be you and me now." And she said a shiver went through her body, because she was like, "Wait a minute, what's he going to do? He's not going to be preoccupied with this band anymore. I'm an artist. How am I going to deal with this?" But little did they dream that they could jump in together and start the bed-ins, the Acorn event, the poster event, the concerts. It just kept on coming. All the music, Plastic Ono Band.
Plastic Ono Band, right.
Yeah.
He was a big part of that, definitely. If you could pick maybe 2 or 3 high points of Yoko's career, what would you pick? Like, as far as your favorite, or maybe like high points of her career?
Well, I love a lot of her music, but any little part of her career, the art is the biggest, but the music is a blip. The Beatles was 12 years with John. That's nothing in 91 years of life, So, her high point, I don't know, for her or for me, it's, her 1970s albums, Plastic Ono Band, which, that really was just a jam. John was making his album, and he put her together with Klaus Voormann and Ringo Starr and himself on guitar, just jamming, see what happened. It was just this long jam session, and it turned out being released. And I don't know if she would have gotten into music if it wasn't for that. He gave her a beat. She was into 12-tone music, the avant-garde stuff. She had done some atonal things before that, but nothing really recorded, and nothing really like an album. And Sean Lennon, their son, even says, she goes from not knowing much about music at all to inventing punk rock with that first album. It's wild. And I love the second one, which was Fly, which he released at the same time as Imagine. Hers was a double album. Then 1973, when he's doing, what was he doing? It was maybe Mind Games or before Mind Games. I mean, 72, they did Sometime in New York City together, alternating songs like they did on Double Fantasy. Then her next one was another double, Approximately Infinite Universe, with Elephant's Memory Band. And that had a whole bunch of genres on it: ballads, rockers, reggae, everything. It's fantastic. So that's my high point for her. For her, she valued all of her work equally. I mean, it was all a statement of communication. It was all a means of healing, reaching out to other people with a healing message. That's all she was ever about, because she was so damaged as a child, being brought back on a rickety truck to Tokyo that's burning in flames, decimated, she goes back to her opulent home, but she sees all this around her, and she realizes nothing is, you can't hold on to anything in life. Everything is transient. So that's why her artwork is all ephemeral. You can't really own a piece of her work. It's just an instruction or a thought, an idea, and imagine this, imagine that. So from trying to heal herself, she's trying to heal others.
Okay. So what's the best place to get your book?
So the best place is through me at conceptualbooks.com. There's the soft and hardcover version there, and I can sign them for you. That's the best part of it. And it's on Amazon, soft cover only on Amazon. Worldwide, you can get it.
Okay. Are you doing a book signing soon or something, or did that pass?
Yes, I have a book signing coming up in New Jersey at Englewood Library. And my guest of honor is going to be Michael Wilds, who's the son of Leon Wilds, their immigration attorney, who made it possible for John to stay in America.
Okay. When is that?
That's on October 7th at 7 p.m., Englewood Public Library.
Okay, we'll definitely make an announcement about
that. Does she still go to like the parole board hearing, right? She still go to this day. Anytime the guy's up for parole, I think she still goes, right?
Well, she always, participates or sends a statement or a message that, she does.
That's amazing. After all those years, she's still doing it.
Well,
Well,
was,
she don't want him coming out. That's for sure.
nobody does. No.
Nobody
I don't
does.
think that guy will come
Nah,
out a long
I
time.
doubt it. Not in our lifetime. No way. So, okay. So your book, In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono, like you say, on Amazon or through your conceptual, what's it called?
Conceptualbooks.com. And there's a website for the book. You can read reviews, see other podcasts, and it's called inyourmindsbook.com. And that picture was me and Patty Boyd, George's wife. Olivia Harrison recommended it on Instagram.
Great.
Yeah, all, Yoko's friends and colleagues are loving it. So I can't
That's
be
awesome.
happier.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
You know what? I'll probably put a link on the video also, so people can click it and they can find you easily. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. This way everyone can see it. All right. So, but this is not all you're known for. Okay. You have a blog called MadelineX.com, which I've checked out, and you got some great writing there. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, but you have a history in the rock and roll scene in New York City that I'm actually envious of. We actually like a lot of the same music, okay, which is very cool. But you saw some stuff that I was maybe just a few years too young for. Where'd you grow up, Madeline?
I grew up in Roslyn, Long Island, suburbs, about 30 minutes from the city.
Right.
And yeah. And I finally my first concert was, I said, 1972, John and Yoko at Madison Square Garden. And that was a big benefit concert. And they had a lot of artists there, Stevie Wonder, Roberta Flack, Sha Na Na, the whole Elephant's Memory Band backing them up. And by 73, 74, I was I luckily had one friend who liked what I did. And we could get on the train and go mostly to Madison Square Garden and see things out there. So, I saw Bowie and,
You saw Bowie in 73?
No, not in 73, because I saw Bowie in 76, every time after 76. But I've seen, the New York Dolls and Mott the Hoople and, everybody I loved.
Were you at the famous Mott the Hoople opening Dolls opening?
Opening for Mott. Well, my friend's parents grounded. We had tickets, and my friend's parents grounded her. I was so pissed. But I did get the first Queen album at that time because I want to see who's opening. And I loved them from the start. And I did see Queen at the Beacon Theater in 75.
Wow.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Okay, now Roslyn in those days, you had My Father's Place, that club there.
Exactly.
I was there a couple of times when I was about 15. I got in with a fake ID. But tell us about My Father's Place. That was a great place too.
That's where everything kicked off for me, because I could go, when I was young, I, couldn't get in. You had to be 18.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was 18, and that was great because that's when great people were playing there. And I'd go in the afternoon. It was just such a small place. And I'd go in the back in the parking lot and watch them unload the trucks for the sound check. And most of the time they would invite me into the sound check, and it was Ian Hunter, Mick Ronson, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, Patti Smith. Like, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So I met them all, saw the shows in these tiny little places, Blondie, New York Dolls, and David Johansen after that. And
well, Johnny Thunders used to play there too.
Johnny and Sylvain jumped on stage with Blondie and Jet Boy one night, and I still have their autographs on that.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Did you go to Max's?
Max's, I was a little young. I did end up at CBGB's a lot because that was the year I graduated high school, 76, 77, and I was at CBGB's almost every weekend.
Cool.
They didn't really check ID like that in CBG.
Well, girls always had an easier time getting
Except
into it.
I looked like I was 12 when I was 18.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get away with that.
I mean, getting fake ID back in those days was easy too. I used to do that.
You should have got one in Times Square.
I didn't know how. I was no, I didn't. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, you couldn't pull it off.
Mm.
That's cool. So back in the 70s, like when, let's say, CBGB's, what was some of your favorite stuff coming out of there?
Of course, the Ramones was the biggest for me. I mean, you were at all those early shows when hardly anyone there, but everyone that was there was just, oh my God, this is next big thing. This is they're ours. We didn't even really think they'd get to the mainstream. Like, oh my God, this is our thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were there through everything with them. And then the Cramps used to play with the Ramones,
Right.
double bills every weekend for a while.
Cramps are one of the bands I miss the most. I'm the biggest Ramones fan in the world too, but when the Cramps came around, that was such a great show. I didn't miss a Cramp show in New York City between 1986 and when they hung it up Lux died in 2009, but their last show in New York City was in 2006. So for that 20-year period, I saw every Cramp show in New York City. If they played 2 nights, I went 2 nights. If they played 3 nights, I went 3 nights. Sometimes they would play like Irving Plaza on a Friday and like the Warsaw in Brooklyn on a Saturday. I go to both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was just like an incredible experience live.
I didn't go to one of my college finals exams because the Cramps were playing in the afternoon when I was supposed to take the test. And it was at my father's place. And, a few people in the audience. Lux was just in the audience with us doing the whole show.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
I believe he is one of the greatest frontmen that ever existed.
Oh, so funny. I loved him. And then I have an article on the blog, a whole review of that when I saw the Cramps and Iggy Pop on Halloween. And that was something else.
Right. Now, I just want to tell everybody at the MadelineX.com, what we're talking about here is what she's talking about in her blogs, okay? All this past history and what she experienced. You sent me something recently about Goat's Head Soup. Is that one of your favorite Stones albums?
One of them, yeah. I mean, I write about maybe 10 or 11 Stones albums just because the anniversaries came up, like the 40th, the 50th, whatever comes up. I write a whole big retrospective on these things. And yeah, that's a great one. And that's what I've been doing. I think that's what prompted me to keep the blog going. It started out as, I had all these notebooks where I wrote about every concert and the set list and what they wore and what, So
you were doing this back in the day, you said.
Yeah, and I transcribed a lot of that. And then I also had written for my college newspaper, which is New York Tech, right? Campus site. So, I get the free records and review them, but I only got what I wanted, I only write about what I love, first of all, because I would have wanted an assignment to write about the Go-Go's or something that I have no interest. Let somebody who likes them write about that. I'm writing about things. And that's why fans love my blog, because you're not going to read any criticism. It's only what's so great about this,
Yeah. I mean, but it's such a great timeline, okay? Because you're talking about stuff from 50 years ago almost, and then going up to now. What do you listen to now? Are there any new bands?
Not really. I would say the last band who I had to have everything they ever did was Suede in the 90s.
Suede, yeah. Yeah, they were good.
But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really bought any. I listen to it, but it's nothing that's really moving me.
You know what it is? I don't know if you'll agree, but it's just the production too on a lot of these new bands. It's just so slick and so there's no sloppiness to anything. There's maybe not just because it's digital. I mean, there's been great albums in the digital age, but I think that there's just this kind of like slickness and they auto tune things in a way, and there's just no like a reality missing or something to it.
And there's no I can't relate. It's not warm. It's not like the old feel. I can't connect with it. But even, we used to listen to on the radio, right? AM radio was my first thing. And I was listening to all those mini masterpieces they were playing even doo-wop at the time, right? Because that was the oldies station.
That was oldies, right?
Right now, oldies is 80s.
Right.
So it was 50s, 60s, 70s. There was Motown. There was these beautiful story songs like Reflections of My Life by Marmalade. Or even like the Supremes had some like Love Child.
The Love Child album. See, I mean, the single is fantastic, but if you actually listen to that album, it's a concept album, okay, in a lot of ways, and there's songs on there that Diana Ross is singing that I'm sure will never perform live, okay, but she's talking about topical things for that time in the late 60s that weren't discussed in music. In fact, I know Motown was kind of unsure if they were going to put it out. Same with like Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. That was an album that almost didn't come out, okay, because of the topics being discussed. I mean, those story songs that you call it, and all that.
Yeah, and like Indiana Wants Me, that one with all the strings and Suspicious Minds, just the Wrecking Crew on most of those songs, right? These brilliant musicians, Phil Spector's stuff.
Yeah.
There's brilliance coming out every day. And also you knew that everyone was listening to these songs. The whole country was united, right? You're listening to some things from England, you've got, and everybody knows the song. Like my mother would be having a barbecue in the yard and I would walk up the street and the same song is on at the next house and the same song at the next. We're all together with this. And it was fantastic. And even when FM radio came along, I liked that too, because now I could hear more tracks from my same. I would select the artist that I love. Now I want to hear 10 things by this person more than I want to hear 50 things by 50 people.
Right. When FM first started, it was deep cuts. They would play album tracks that wasn't being played. All you heard maybe was the single, short version of the single on AM, but you get the whole thing on FM.
Right. And the example of that would be like Nilsson's Jump Into the Fire and that Klaus Vormann bass solo. They would stop it right before
they would cut it out. Yep. I've heard that short version. That's terrible.
Yeah, all that stuff. And then you get the albums and you've got these pictures and the cover and the liner notes and you just embracing all this stuff. And that's when one of my favorites is when Diamond Dogs came out and there's Bowie as a dog on there. Like, whoa.
That's a sick album cover, I always thought.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
So are you enjoying this new kind of vinyl revival that's been going on?
I think it's the greatest thing. I do buy, my favorite. But here's the thing. When I was younger, let's say I had a lot of albums from the early 70s, and in the late 70s you would find those albums in cutout bin for like $1.99. But I always bought another copy and kept it sealed for when I'm in a nursing home and I could crack open a brand new copy. But now there's like expanded set, double album outtakes. So I have bought some of those of my favorites.
Yeah, it's not cheap either.
No.
Molly had a great record collection.
Who?
Molly.
Oh, Molly, owner of the International Bar. Yeah.
Yeah, hundreds, probably thousands of albums. Like I guess her cousin came and got most of the album, but it was a lot.
She passed away during COVID.
Oh.
Yeah, she would listen to music all the time, and she had everything. She had a bunch of Ramones, everything that was out. And then with the original, it wasn't like brand new. It was the original freaking albums.
That's it was. They're like my children, my original albums. I would never sell them.
What's great about the International Bar where Rob bartends, I hang out, is, we still play Molly's playlist. And,
cool.
She had a great playlist all the time going and a good jukebox also with some definitely different stuff, not the usual thing you might come across in the East Village, but definitely check out International Bar for that reason. Plus, Rob works there, so you need to go. So, okay. So, Madeline, I want to thank you for being on. Okay.
You're welcome.
And we're going to plug your book, In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. Everybody check out her rock and roll blog, MadelineX.com. When's the next blog going to be coming out? Soon?
Whenever I'm inspired, but I'm going to try to arrange. I've been requested to arrange the whole thing into some sort of book, which might be an ebook because it's so massive. I have to really curate it. And
how long have you been doing the blog now?
I think it started in 2002.
Oh, shit. Wow. 22, almost 23 years already, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's a lot of stuff there. So, all right. So, Rob.
Yes, sir.
So,
text.
oh, okay. Okay. So, all right. So, thanks again for coming on. And
thank you. Nice to meet you both. I've met you in person. It was great.
All right. And
I'm gonna put all the links to her blog and the links to the record, and I'll put a bunch of whatever links, even your Facebook or whatever, like X, Twitter, whatever you have.
I'll send it all to you if you want. Yeah.
yeah, we'll put it up.
We'll put it up, so it's easier like that. So people can like click and well, we pretty much go worldwide. So we're like on every finger podcast, like things you can believe. Like we're on everywhere. We're on Amazon podcast thing. We're on Google. We're on everywhere. Spotify, and then the YouTube channel. So you're definitely gonna get a lot of people going in there and looking up, because that's the way we get a lot of people. And even people that call us like we want to be on the show, because we just get a nice little hit. And I always put all the stuff, all the links, so people can get to you or drop it.
And I gotta thank Madeline too, because she did all the work for me. Usually I find people, she found me. Okay. Yeah, you contacted me on Facebook, which is great. I love it when people find me,
Yeah,
that's cool. So, all right, so what do we say at the end of every episode, Rob?
We don't get drunk,
we get lumped up.
We'll see you next time.
Take care, people. Thank you, Madeline.
I'm getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. I'm getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. Well, I'm lumped up, but I'm okay. It's gonna get lumped up anyway. You better call back the posse. Just getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi. Getting lumped up with RockerMike and Rob Rossi.